Welcome everyone, my name is Brendan Snyder. Thank you so much for joining me. This is New Music Finds episode number 19, and it's where I like to collect together all my new music that I purchased from the past week, present it to you here, and it comes from places like my local record stores, online retailers, Amazon, eBay, and more. And for this past week, I had a particularly big score at my local record store, finding 15 used gems. I've also got 3 new releases to run through for a total of 18 CDs. But before we dive into all that, if you are new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please click the button. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by subscribing, you'll be able to stay up to date on all that's going on in the world of music, just like this with New Music Finds, episode number 19. And kicking things off, as we always do, we start with new releases here. And these 3 new releases all come from Amazon. It's one of my favorite places to order from because I can get them usually on release day, except for this one here, which was delayed by about a week. Helloween, which came out June 18th, and like I said, because it was delayed, that's why I'm reviewing it here. So I've done a full review of this, and I'm going to leave a link in the description below, but I'm going to give you a short little rundown right here. This is the 16th studio album, and it's now the first to feature the 7-member Pumpkins United lineup, which now has a returning Kai Hansen on vocals and guitar. It's a first album with him since 1988, and Michael Kiske returning, first album with him since 1993. So all of that together now means that they've got 3 lead vocalists and 3 lead guitar players. And I think this album here perfectly melds together these different personalities, and it gives even the 3 vocalists all time to shine in here, but you also get the vocalists, you know, backing up, enhancing, and embellishing the other performers while they're doing it. So it's never just one vocalist performing. You've got all these guys performing on each song, which is really great, truly collaborative, both vocally and guitar-wise. And of course, you know, now, as I said, this is a triple lead guitar attack on here, each guitarist adding and accentuating the songs with their unique style. All this is to say that this album here is 100% pure Helloween. It's a great album, and I do highly recommend it. All right, the next new release comes from Dream Theater, Images and Words, live in Japan 2017, just came out on June 25th. So for years, the band has been releasing its own official bootlegs, consisting of live shows, demos, and studio outtakes, and they've now partnered up with Inside Out Records to start reissuing that catalog. And so this one here is actually a new release amongst that old catalog reissuing, doing this one here. So they're going to be doing some new titles as well as reissuing the old catalog. But this one here came as a surprise to me. It's a really great full energy live performance of the album Images and Words, which was their second album performed in its entirety, and I do highly recommend that as well. And the third and final new release for the week comes from the Goo Goo Dolls, Rarities. Came out on June 25th, and it spans their career between the years 1995 and 2007. And so this collection here includes B-sides, live tracks, acoustic versions, radio performances, international rarities, and non-album tracks. All of that is to say that this album here is what I think is a bit inconsistent of a listen. I had high hopes for it and what it could be providing, but there's so many different live versions and acoustic versions and takes on things that the flow of it for me doesn't really go very well. I still very much like the Goo Goo Dolls. It's a nice collection to have to get these recordings, but in terms of listening as a whole album, I just don't think it flows very well as such. Okay, so moving into the used gems that I found. As I mentioned, I found 15 at my local record stores. Had a really big score with them. These all come from Academy Records on 18th Street in Manhattan. I want to give them a shout out because it's a great location. If you're anywhere in the New York City area and you can check it out, I do highly recommend it. And first one up here comes from Roxy Music, the Atlantic years. This one here spans, or the years, or I should say the date on it says 73 to 1980, and it came out in 1983. But despite the title, it actually only features songs from 75, 79, and 1980. So the albums that it covers: Siren 1975, Manifesto 1979, and Flesh and Blood 1980. Okay, moving into the next one here, we've got Electric Light Orchestra on the third day, 1973 release and third studio album. It was the last album that I needed to flesh out my collection, so I'm really glad to get a hold of that and finish off my studio album collection of Electric Light Orchestra. This one was the first one without founding member Roy Wood, so this is where they really began to come into their own and where you had Jeff Lynne, really take over as the leader of this band. Okay, next one up here, Huey Lewis and the News, Small World, 1988, fifth studio album by these guys here. And so this one here, while not as successful as their earlier ones like Fourscore and stuff like that, this one here was certified platinum in the end. It is a really good listen in my opinion, still fitting right in with that 80s sound that we know and love from Huey Lewis and so forth. So, all right, next one up is Jefferson Starship, Greatest Hits Live at the Fillmore, 1999. So recorded, at the classic Fillmore live location. The show actually aired on TV for New Year's Eve 1999, which is what spawned this album here. The thing is, I don't find this live recording to be very good. In my opinion, Jefferson Starship has never been the best live band, and I might get some flack for that, but that's just been my experience, certainly in the later years and whatnot. But this one here, just not a very solid live recording in my opinion, but again, fleshing out the collection nonetheless with it. The next live recording that I got here, I do think is a really good one. The Kinks, called The Road Live, and it came out in 1987. This was actually the third live recording that the band released, and it does feature two never-before-released songs on it. The first song on it, The Road, which is actually a studio recording, then it goes into the live tracks thereafter, and it's also got another unreleased song called It. That one is a live recording, and that's later in the track listing on it. Unfortunately, though, the album when it came out at the time was considered a flop. It didn't do very well for it, but I think it's a great release. So very excited to get this and have it in the collection now. Next one is another one where I'm fleshing out the collection. Jethro Tull, Original Masters, 1985. Third greatest hits package for these guys, at the time at least. Despite coming out in 1985, it doesn't feature any material after 1977. So a lot of these collections and things through the mid-80s were doing that, and or they were by earlier labels that bands were on, stuff like that. But I do like them because they're usually fairly succinct in what the material is on them, and I find those kind of listens very, very good. So I like to have them in the collection for that. Also, just to get a feel for the time period and that sort is always good. Okay, next one up. Little Steven, Freedom No Compromise, 1987, third solo album. So this one here is an interesting release, as it's really kind of a full-on dance rock album, and it verges on even world music and the type of instrumentation and everything. This one here I'm really just picking up because it's the original jewel case version. I do have a remastered version that came out in 2019 or 2020, but all of these remastered ones that he's been doing have been coming with DVDs, and they're in digipacks, and I don't really care for that. I had picked it up just to get a hold of the recording, but I do prefer jewel cases, as you guys know, so glad to get a hold of that one this way. I mean, a lot of these that I was picking up were $1.99, $2.99, that sort of a thing, so I can afford to double up on an album to have a jewel case version if I want, because they're so inexpensive like that. I'm sure you guys do some of that same stuff, or have other types of reasons that you'll double up on albums. Okay, next one up, The Moody Blues, On the Threshold of a Dream, which came out in 1969. This is a remastered version of it, fourth studio album. If you guys recall back a month or two back, I was listening to a lot of Moody Blues, kind of getting into them for the first time. I had always listened here. They're actually one of my last big record store finds. I had found a greatest hits by the Moody Blues that kicked all of that off. So interesting how that's tied into this one here. And another Moody Blues, Every Good Boy Deserves Favor, which came out in 1971. This one was their seventh studio album. So haven't checked those out yet, but looking forward to it. Next one's an interesting release, although a bit odd too. Hindu Love Gods. This one here came out in 1990, and it's essentially REM with Warren Zevon. but it's REM minus Michael Stipe, so it's without their singer, and now of course they've got Warren Zevon. So if you ever wanted to know what REM sounded like without Michael Stipe having a different singer, this would be the case to check out. But the thing is, they're doing predominantly all blues covers, so it doesn't really sound like REM or Warren Zevon at that. So an interesting melding of these groups, but you don't really get to hear what it would be if it was really REM or Warren Zevon, etc., that sort of a thing. Okay, next one up, also fleshing out the collection here, Dokken, Beast from the East, 1988 live album. It's the only one I didn't have by these guys. Not a big fan of live albums. I think you guys know that. So I don't always pick those things up right away. I usually wait till after I've fleshed out the whole catalog to start adding those in. This one here did feature one new studio track, Walk Away, and it was the final recording before the band broke up at the time. Okay, this next one was a really good find. It's Glenn Frey, the Allnighter from 1984. This one here, second solo album, and his solo albums are really hard to find. I almost never run across them. And again, if you guys recall back to that last big score that I had, I found Glenn Frey in that one. So really interesting. Two different stores too. So it wasn't like same record store had these come in, but just interesting that these last two times some big scores have happened with similar finds like that. This one was his most successful album, solo album at the time, featuring Smuggler's Blues, of which from Miami Vice, the TV show, they actually based a whole episode on, became even more successful based on that. Also had the single Sexy Girl on it, and the album was certified gold. And then found this one, Phil Collins, Serious Hits Live, came out in 1990. The songs itself are all taken from various concerts throughout the world tour. I didn't know this until I just looked this up. The album itself went 4 times platinum. I didn't realize that it sold so well for him, but there you go. Again, another live album, just fleshing out the collection, and whole $2.99, still sealed in plastic. And I know they have just reissued it, but again, I prefer the jewel case version because the reissue is in a diggy pack. Okay, and that's exactly why I purchased this next one here. Bob Dylan, simply called Dylan, from 2007 collection itself. This one $4.99 and sealed in plastic too, but I already had the Digipack version of this, but I'm picking it up because it is a jewel case version. The Digipacks get beat up so quickly, and that really bothers me, so picking up a jewel case version will protect it more. I'm going to cycle it out based on that. So there was also a 3-disc 51-track version of it, but for me that's often too much. I like the single disc versions of these best. Has 18 tracks on it and is by far his most expansive best of collection. All right, and the 15th and final record store score, David Byrne, Grown Backwards from 2004. Still had the slipcase on it, so that was really cool. This is his 7th solo album, of course, coming from the Talking Heads front man, and just everything he does is really, really good. So glad to add that into my collection, and I'm slowly fleshing out his solo years. I've got the whole Talking Heads, but I'm fleshing out the David Byrne, and I've got only a couple more to go in there, but a lot of good stuff. So there you go. That's my new music finds, episode number 19. 15 used gems from a big record store score there, and 3 new releases, 18 total CDs for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Check back every Wednesday for these new episodes on New Music Finds, and please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye, everyone.